I want to talk a little bit about civil rights cases. Civil rights cases are often referred to as police brutality claims or excessive force claims, wrongful shootings, wrongful deaths, jail injury cases or jail death cases. These are based upon your civil rights, and it's the Bill of Rights, the Fourth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and more that is the basis for your ability to bring civil rights cases. But it's important to point out at the beginning of this discussion that there are criminal cases and there are civil cases. In the criminal context, you or your friend or your family member is being charged with a crime. That's the criminal case. That's the government against you or your friend or your family member. Then there's a civil case. The civil case is you against the government or a governmental actor, someone acting under color of law, like a police officer or a custodial officer in a jail setting. So make sure you understand that we're talking about criminal in one aspect and civil in the other aspect. In the criminal aspect of cases, make sure that you seek out and find an attorney who is well versed in that area of the law, can defend you in that case, and understands that while you have a criminal case pending, you may also have a civil rights case. It is important to note that what happens in your criminal case may have a huge impact on your ability to bring a civil rights case. If you're found guilty in a criminal case, you may not have a civil rights case. It really depends upon the outcome. And if you're thinking about pleading, sometimes plea deals are offered by prosecutors. And sometimes the prosecutors know that you may be bringing a civil rights case, so they want to get you to plead to certain crimes, misdemeanors, what have you. Some of those plea deals involve pleading to something called resisting and obstructing, or attempted assault or assault on a police officer. These are the types of pleas that will absolutely cause a huge problem, if not an absolute bar to you bringing a civil claim later on against the officers who are involved. Videos, audios, witnesses, these are all very important things, and you need to make note of them early on. If it's outside in a public setting, there might be stores, businesses, gas stations, things nearby that are capturing everything that's going on video. You want to try to make note of those, and once you hire a lawyer, let him or her know, or maybe you can yourself go and try to obtain videotape footage. You want to make note of any witnesses, if you're able to do that. And many times you can't because of the circumstances, but if you can, make note of them, because that'll be information important to your lawyer later on. Once you have gone through whatever it is you're going through in terms of your interaction with a governmental official or a police officer, if and when you believe they've mistreated you or abused you, you want to file a complaint with that entity, that governmental entity, the offending party or the offending police department, and make a complaint. And most people would say, well, it doesn't matter. They're not going to find fault with their own officers. And that may be true, but you want them to conduct an investigation. Every department has their own special investigations unit or use of force unit, and you want them to go through and to take statements and to preserve evidence and to do those things that are part of a normal investigation. Because even if it doesn't result in a finding against the officer, you can use those reports, you can use those findings, you can at least discover them and gain some information from them. So you want to make sure that after the event's over and you have the time, and hopefully it's shortly after the event, you want to go and make a complaint. Next, you want to look for a competent lawyer. You need someone who is experienced in civil rights cases. And you're going to have to either ask those questions of your attorney or look them up online, or make sure that they've handled civil rights cases from beginning to end and that they've been successful in handling these cases. They're very complicated, they're very unique. Most attorneys don't handle them, so make sure you find a good and qualified attorney. Ask other people if you need to, but you need someone who's qualified in it. There's various statutory provisions that you need to comply with, and there's certain pitfalls that you want to make sure you avoid. There's all kinds of protections out there for police officers and governmental actors, and you want to make sure that you're able to plead around those and or to obtain evidence to get around those, and to make sure that you don't cause a problem for yourself. Next, you want to make sure that you send a letter, or your lawyer sends a letter to the entity or the governmental agency asking that they preserve all the evidence. So all the videos, all the audio tapes, any records that were created, any reports that were made, send a letter asking them to preserve the evidence. If you do that, then They have to. If they don't, and they destroy it, you could get the benefit of an instruction someday if you find yourself in a trial against that entity because they've lost or destroyed the evidence. So make sure you or your attorney sends out that letter demanding that the entity or the officer or the department save and preserve all the evidence that you may need. Once all of that is done and you start to have representation by a lawyer or on your own before you get representation, you can send out what's called a Freedom of Information Act request. In short, we call them FOIA, F-O-I-A requests. And this is your opportunity, this is a law that you can use to request records from the jail, from the state, from the department, from the city, investigation records, medical records, videotapes, audio tapes, and the like. Make sure you ask for everything, and you'll have to detail it. And sometimes you have to ask more than once, 2, 3, 4 times, because these entities, these governmental agencies, oftentimes say that they're not going to grant the request in full. So many times you have to be adamant, you have to be persistent, and you have to get all of those things. Civil rights cases are oftentimes in the context of a problem, maybe an arrest, maybe already someone who's already been incarcerated. Again, because there are two things going on. There's a civil rights case, which is the case you bring against the governmental agency or the governmental person. There's the criminal aspect of the case, and they're not the same. So it's very important that I explain to you, one is criminal, one is civil. The criminal is being brought against you potentially, or your family member or your friend. In that circumstance, you need a good defense lawyer. The defense lawyer is important because not only will he or she get the discovery that's going to help you in the case, but you need to make sure that you don't plea or have a trial if there's a problem with the outcome, because a plea deal or a negative trial outcome can impact your civil case. In other words, for example, if someone pleads guilty to resisting and obstructing a police officer, that's an issue if that person then plans to file a claim for excessive force or police brutality, because basically we can't resist and obstruct. We certainly can't assault the police. And it's important to know that, look, we need our police officers. We need our governments. We want to have a good working relationship with them. If they overstep their bounds, then we want to make sure that we stand up for our rights. Okay? But we also have to stay within our boundaries. So if you are resisting and obstructing, if you are assaulting somebody, then you are causing a problem. And if you have to plead guilty to that because it's true, or if you get convicted of that, then you likely don't have a civil rights case. But again, that's why it's important to talk to your criminal defense attorney and understand the impact that the criminal aspect of the case is going to have on the civil aspect of the case, and then find a good civil rights attorney that you can talk to about whether or not you have a right for compensation or just to stand up for yourself. Sometimes civil rights cases are not just based on injuries, they're just based upon someone infringing upon your rights. And many times you can get punitive damages or other types of damages in those cases because of the egregious conduct that is involved.